I often find myself missing the days of growing up near the lakes and forests of northern Virginia. One of the lakes that immediately comes to mind is Lake Manassas. Lake Manassas is a 770-acre reservoir in Prince William County, Virginia, just southwest of Gainesville and a mere stone's toss from my childhood home. It's in a temperate ecosystem in the mid-Atlantic that is known to endure intense heat and humidity in the summer months, which is exactly when our eDNA sampling and our nature walk take place.
Let's have a look at the history behind Lake Manassas. It was created in the late 1960s for the impoundment of the Bull Run River to provide drinking water to the area. It became operational in 1970. The lake was once open to the public between 1980 to 1995, but that ceased to be the case when drinking water safety concerns began to be taken more seriously. Lake Manassas provides clean drinking water to Manassas, Manassas Park, and unincorporated parts of Prince William County. Conservation groups have been encouraging city officials to reopen parts of the lake to the public, citing recreational and economic opportunities. Currently, the lake is not profitable, and it requires considerable financial resources to enforce its restricted access policies. The eDNA extraction was completed by drawing water from a syringe, affixing the cap, and pushing water through the cap. This was done several times in order to assure that ample DNA was collected. The cap was then injected with a preservative and was mailed to the Jonah Ventures lab where a qPCR analysis was conducted. Our sampling was conducted on a 90-degree day and it felt like 97 due to 50% humidity. It was partly cloudy and there were 12-mile-an-hour winds moving northwards. Despite the slight cloud coverage, it was a scorcher. The UV index hit 7 and the sun could have done some serious damage on the skin. The eDNA was collected at 2:30 p.m. After we got our results, it seemed to be typical of a Virginia freshwater lake. There was an abundance of largemouth bass, Microptera salmoides, green sunfish, Lepoimus cyanellus, bluegill, Lepoimus macrochirus, and various darters. While we look over the results of Lake Manassas, we will compare it to another lake that I am quite familiar with, one that is incredibly close to Lake Manassas, and that is Lake Brittle. The difference between Lake Brittle and Lake Manassas, aside from their obvious size differences, is that Lake Brittle is a public access lake. It is incredibly common to see fishermen and kayakers constantly engaging in activity in this area. One such thing that will make the fish results incredibly different is the introduction of the invasive species in Lake Brittle. Due to the fact that it is public access, it has allowed people to come in and tamper with the fish populations if they please. That has been done, and back in 2017 the northern snakehead was introduced in Lake Brittle.
These species are all found in Lake Manassas' neighbor, Lake Brittle. They are only 6 miles apart, and in addition to all the recorded Lake Manassas fish species, Lake Brittle has been found to have black crappie, Proximus nigromaculatus, American gizzard shad, Dorisoma cepedianum, and the northern snakehead, Chana argus, a major invasive species. A major reason that Lake Manassas does not have diverse fish life is its closure to the public, which prevents it from being stocked with fish, unlike neighboring Lake Brittle.
The most common species of bacteria in Lake Manassas was, by a large margin, Cyanotrococcus. This bacteria is formed in well-lit surface waters, which fits the exact description of our sampling site. It is a unicellular cyanobacterium common in nutrient-rich environments. This might indicate healthy levels of nitrogen and phosphorus, both of which are essential for the development of the lush subaquatic vegetation we saw when sampling. Corycystus parasitica was a species of chlorophytes detected in our sample. It is a typical genus of green algae in North American freshwater lakes. It provides oxygen that allows for far more suitable conditions of aquatic life. Although the fish often get the glory in these eDNA results, it is impossible to overstate the value that the microscopic life has on Lake Manassas. It appears that fish life is much more common in stocked lakes with public access fishing. Lake Brittle has a more diverse fish population than Lake Manassas. However, conservation efforts in Lake Manassas do enable their fish populations to thrive with little to no threats of endangerment. The prohibition of public access has made Lake Manassas less susceptible to major changes in their fish populations. The same cannot be said of Lake Brittle, as they recently experienced panic over a potential fisheries collapse when an invasive species was introduced. Perhaps conservationists ought to unite and accept it as an area of selected access. After all, it is one of the area's most valuable natural resources and consequently one of its healthiest ecosystems. Maintaining the status quo by keeping Lake Manassas private access is in no way unwise. Future possibilities for small-scale public operations will continue to be proposed, but the magnitude of such a policy change will keep things unchanged for the foreseeable future. In the meantime, the current conservation challenge remains the same. Keep Lake Manassas clean and closed to the public.
Birds that you'll at times see include the northern cardinal, red-tailed hawk, bald eagle, blue heron, and great egret. The northern cardinal is a state bird of Virginia, and its bright red feathers make it one of the most easily recognizable birds in the country. It is a medium-sized songbird that'll often sound its mating calls from tall trees. The red-tailed hawk is a bird of prey that covers nearly all of North America. It delights in small mammal populations in the areas around the lake, in addition to occasional fish and amphibians. The bald eagle, America's most iconic bird, frequently flies in the Virginia skies, largely due to successful conservation efforts by the Virginia Department of Fish and Wildlife, among many other agencies across the country. The blue heron is Virginia's largest wetland bird and the largest heron in North America. The great egret is another bird found across North America. It loves lake edges and large marshes where they spend much of their time feeding and nesting. All of these birds are beautiful, majestic animals that are known across the country. The habitat of Lake Manassas provides them with tranquility and low noise pollution, features that they all seem to use to their advantage. Often these birds appear to be the only active fishermen in the lake, as you can see with the eagle and egret below. We can now take a stroll across the shoreline. Common trees we'll see include the red maple, white oak, and mockernut hickory. You'll often hear the calls of the American bullfrog, which breeds in nearly any permanent body of water in the state of Virginia. These are the largest species of frog in North America, and their peak breeding season lasts from May to August. The spring peeper can also be heard in this area during its mating season. This little frog loves the water and woodlands, and will quickly make its presence known near the start of each spring. It is not uncommon to also hear the upland chorus frog. These are common to the moist vegetated areas across the eastern United States. They are distinguishable due to their gray-brown color and unique vocalizations. In regards to mammals, you'll typically encounter the occasional white-tailed deer, which is so common that it's even referred to as the Virginia deer. There are always a few gray squirrels hanging around, serving as both pint-sized tree factories and a bird of prey buffet. On this trip we also managed to bump into a rare mammal, a curious little Jack Russell by the name of Tater. He was such a handy companion and field guide, and his company really added to our trip.
Lake Manassas' strict regulations have allowed it to be free of significant pollution and of superior water quality. Due to its grand importance, Lake Manassas appears to be one of the increasingly seldom remaining areas of northern Virginia that is unaffected by suburban sprawl. Conservation efforts will have to remain stringent. The population size of Manassas has grown 12% in the past decade alone, and meeting the water demands of the southernmost area of the DC metro commute is no small task, and tough decisions must be made to meet water supply demands. Ultimately, it would appear that the fish populations, along with all other kinds of wildlife, are thriving in Lake Manassas.